Welcome to another episode of the Advice First podcast. This is your host, Robert Clark. We are in our favorite place, yet again, the podcast studio for Advice First, sitting behind a microphone. We have an incredible guest here with us, who I'll introduce in a second. Before we get to the guest, of course, for Season 3, joined by our special co-host, Mr. Chris Ingram.
Thanks for having me.
If you're watching on YouTube, you might just join the club of 1,000 people who have commented on Chris's tan. And for the record, he does not lay out all day, even though we've given him trash for it. What, you spent one day in the sun?
Yes, I literally went on the boat one day, and this is what happened. So no, I'm not frequently going to tanning salons or anything like that, so you guys can dispel the myth.
Chris had a client yesterday on a Zoom call referred to him as floating teeth because you couldn't see the rest of his body. You could just see his shiny white teeth.
Yes.
So please take it away.
Maybe at least it makes my teeth look white.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a plus.
And I only give you crap because I'm jealous. So Now that we got that out of the way, we can focus on what we're really here for. Yeah, our real guest. This wonderful human being, I want to say, is the first two-time guest to the Advice First podcast. Mr. Andrew Cohen, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Howard Robbins. Nice to be here today.
Yeah,
That's pretty impressive.
I know, it is. And one of the reasons that he's back in the hot seat is because Andrew Cohen is a strategic partner to Prosperitas Financial. Obviously, your background is in estate planning. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I was thinking of when we invited you back to the podcast, the reason is because, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, you must be the most referred strategic partner in our office. I don't know what it is. I don't know if people just like working with you and the word gets around, or it's probably just that estate planning is a huge missed planning area for most clients. But we're very thankful to have you to lean on. We get rave reviews, so you're easy to refer, and excited to dive into, I don't want to say all things estate planning, but really more of understanding your background, who you are, where you came from. So I know you didn't grow up in California, so let's take it all the way back. East Coast days. What was family life for Mr. Cohen?
Sure. So nice to be here. Thank you for having me today. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, northern suburbs.
That's right.
And I've been in California since '98, so a long time. But I grew up Willow Grove, Huntington Valley area, nice suburbs, small school. My high school was, I don't know, maybe 1,000 kids total.
Okay.
But it was a nice, traditional suburbs. There was no cinder block fences between the houses. The backyard had a lower level that was separated by evergreen trees, and then the upper level literally was a dozen houses long. We could play wiffle ball, we could throw footballs, nerfs, just run around.
Dang.
We'd play hockey in the street hockey. It was very cool.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
That's a good time. And your family, your dad still lives there, right?
Yeah, my dad, my family, aunts, uncles, cousins. I miss everyone very much, but they're all around the Philly area, Bucks County area.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool.
Cool. Well, Chris has some favorite questions to ask at the end of the episode, and I can almost guarantee I know how you're going to answer it based on that background, but we'll get there when we get there.
What brought you to California?
I mean, I don't know. They're kind of a variety of things. So I graduated college, and one of my stepbrothers and I came out to California for about 5 days, just on a whim. We literally playing tennis. I just graduated college, and we said, let's just go and visit. And we went home, travel agency, made the arrangements, flew out here, San Diego for a few days. And our last night that we were here, we had several hours to kill before the flight home. And we went down to Manhattan Beach. Someone said, go down there, grab a bite. And I watched the sunset on the pier. And I took a picture. And I said, I'm going to live here someday. And I kept that picture with me through grad school on the wall. And I had a chance to come out here. I had a buddy of mine that got a job with one of the networks as an editor. And I was just kind of kicking around, and I flew out to visit him, some frequent flyer miles. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. So I just moved out, drove across the country to Manhattan Beach, and find my fame and fortune. So
Yeah.
that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gosh, do you wish you bought in Manhattan Beach at the time as opposed to Valencia?
Yeah, that conversation comes up a lot. So I remember before, when my wife and I were dating, before we were married, it was like 98, 99, looking at really expensive houses in Manhattan Beach that were like $319,000, thinking outrageous.
Yeah.
Boy, who could possibly afford that? And now I wish I bought like so many. Such a little amount down, one after another, rent them out. Yeah. I wouldn't be here sitting here talking today, but I'd be a beach rental mogul.
Well, thank God for our clients that didn't happen.
Yeah, thank
now
you.
They have a good estate planning attorney.
Exactly right. Wow, crazy. And then so how did the transition happen from California and estate planning attorney? Like, when did that all come together?
I did it. Back east, I wasn't doing this. I graduated law school, went back to school, went to law school in my 20s, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I have my law degree and my MBA, which fast forward has really been really valuable to what I do in running a business and working with clients. But law school was, I'm not going to say anything negative here. Law school, I graduated. It was a great education. I learned a lot. Business school, MBA program was really fun. I still have buddies and people that I know all across the country. That was a really, really cool experience. Law school, I got a degree. And I knew I liked this area of law. I liked estate and trust planning. It was always interesting to me. So I went. I knew I wanted to do this. And I worked for a firm, and I knew I wanted to do it on my own because there were certain areas that I wanted to do, certain things I didn't want to do. And so I did it. I worked for a firm, got some really, really good experience, and passed the bar here in California and had the chance to open up shop, as it was.
That's pretty cool.
So
when you say you fell in love with estate planning, like why? What about estate planning caught your attention specifically?
Before I did it, it just sounded interesting. Oh, estate planning, it sounds fancy. But then when I took some classes in school, I liked it. I liked being able to work with people's finances and talk to them, and help them. Personal kind of my story a little bit. My mom passed away when I was 15. And so I think a piece of that is always there and seeing that. So because a lot of people have no idea what I do, it's really important for almost everyone to have, and we'll talk a little bit more about what it is, but it's putting plans together now that are there for the future. So when something happens, it's been thought out by a married couple, single dad, single mom, for themselves, for the kids, protection, all that. So I think all these things sort of just kind of came together, and I wanted to be able to do that. And I saw an avenue that I could do something where I didn't have to go to court, I didn't have to litigate, I didn't have to be involved in areas of the law that I didn't want to do, and I could be out on my own and do it. So
I like that.
Yeah.
You had mentioned there what sounds like would be a typical client, so married family or even a single parent with some kids. Anything that you would add to that as far as people typically reaching out to you and who you help the most?
I mean, it varies, right? It varies. My clients are people, just normal people. People think they need a lot of assets. No, you just need something. You have yourselves. We're dealing with, big picture. Everyone's different. People are single. They're married. They have kids. They don't. They have young kids. They have adult kids. They have adult kids that are got their feet on the ground, have families of their own. They have adult kids that are maybe young adults. They're not quite mature yet. Maybe they will be. Hopefully they will be. Maybe not. People are the Brady Bunch. They're the Brady Bunch that don't get along. Yeah. Everyone gets along, but you don't like your son or daughter-in-law. It's life, right? Everyone, you guys know people, probably each and every one of them. And assets are different. People own a home. They own multiple properties, rental. They rent where they live, but they own a building like the one we're sitting in today, and they have 2 businesses. There's insurance, there's pensions, there's 401ks. All of these different things mixed together and need to be addressed, right? But for what? Big picture, broadly speaking, everybody, death and incapacity. Either of those things happen and you don't have private planning in place, you get the public plan, which is not a plan, it's the court system. So everything we do, everyone's different, but everything we do is an eye towards some way or another death or incapacity and making sure that we've got things taken care of.
Interesting. And so what exactly does, when you say estate planning, what does that entail? specifically for those risks? Like, does that mean everyone gets a trust? I have to assume there's other pieces to the
most
puzzle.
people, and it's not just one document, right? People call me all the time, and they have different levels of knowledge. And some people are like, "All right, I need a trust because my brother has it." And it's exactly that. We have the same thing. My parents passed away. They had nothing. We were in court. We need something similar. We need something different. Most people, a trust is there, but I'm not going to say everybody. Some people, it's not needed, but typically it's a trust-focused plan, several different documents. We want to deal with incapacity, your own person, health, medical, incapacity for assets, different kind of assets, and how it gets put together. So,
yeah. Expand on that a little bit, because I would say the number one thing I hear people say when I mention estate planning, even having a trust, they go, well, I don't really have much to protect.
Right.
Okay? And that's when I go into the spiel of, minor children or what happens if you're incapacitated. So touch on those other documents that you're talking about a little bit.
Yeah.
Of why so many people have the misconception that they need to have assets to protect in order to have a trust, and all of those other documents that provide so much value within those trust documents.
Right. I think what might make sense, if I may, and I can answer it, but before I answer, maybe a little background on what happens. What are people facing out there in kind of that negative space if they don't have anything? And I think if that would work for a moment or two to kind of, say what are people facing, what's out there, and that gives us, I like to think of as a negative framework, negative foundation, so then what's being done makes sense. Yeah. So if someone doesn't have anything in place, right, in its general, the trust focused plan, estate planning, if you don't have anything in place and something happens, it's too late. It's too late to stay out of court, right? Something, death or incapacity, right? Again, broadly speaking. If someone becomes incapacitated, if you can't make decisions for yourself, whether it's permanent dementia, Alzheimer's, if it's maybe you're in an accident and you're medicated and you can't function for several days, something in between, someone has a heart attack, a stroke, there's hope that they get better. You don't have capacity to make decisions for yourself, what doctor to see, what medicines, course of treatment, where you're going to live, all those things. If you don't have the capacity and the ability to do those things, it's too late to put plans in place because you don't have the legal capacity to work with an attorney, sign documents, make those decisions. And then if you don't have documents in place, the family, high likelihood they're going to have to go to court to establish a conservatorship where the court, the judge, is going to figure out what's going on, render judgment regarding who can make these decisions. What can they decide? What can't they do? All those things like that. And now you're in court, right? Time, expense, court appearances. We don't want that. So it's your own person also dealing with assets, right? We don't want day-to-day someone just coming in and saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to sell Robert's house. Well, who are you? What gives you the right to do that, right? Well, so we have protections, protecting ourselves. So if we're incapacitated, we can do it. Spouses don't have automatically legal rights to make these decisions. You might be married. You might have living parents. You might have adult children, siblings. No, there's no one is just automatically in charge for any of this. So we need to think about it and have plans in place, right? Hopefully we get through life without incapacity. Right. Not always. It just depends. If someone passes away, you have all your stuff, right? An estate does not mean that you're fabulously wealthy, tech guy. I have an estate. I'm married. 3 kids. I have a house. 401k. Have my office. It's in a corporation. Some other things. Anyone has an estate. So you don't want to go to court to deal with it. Someone passes away. It is very too late to put planning in place if you've passed on. No one can do it for you. You got to go to court to sort all these things out. So even if you're just a single person, who's going to get your assets? Where are they going to go? If you're married, where are they going to go? Things happen between spouses, blended families, you have kids. Even if all's said and done, you leave assets to kids. Are they how old are they? Even if they're in their 20s, are they responsible? Yet their 30s, do they have jobs? Do you like their spouses? What's their situation? I don't want to have someone that's 20 years old inherit a house and $1 million in life insurance and say, I'm not finishing school. This job's terrible, right? How many people at 21 years old have their career set? So it's really easy to blow through that inheritance, kick around, live at the beach, have some goofy buddies, have some people that maybe don't have your best interests in mind, and now you're not working at your job, get a job, change jobs, careers. But don't blow through the inheritance and be 31 and have nothing going on.
Yeah.
So,
wow, that's huge. It's crazy that spouses don't have automatic, power of attorney or legal authority, I guess, to speak on behalf.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, Middle Ages. It's not Victorian London. There's no dowries. Yeah. Women have rights. Men have rights. You know what I mean? It's just, it's our stuff. So we do have the ability to do it, and that's why we do this, right? If not, it does function, but it's through the courts, and it just, how's it going to go? How's it going to flow? So yeah, there's something there, but it's not the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so what, to Chris's point, like what are all those different pieces outside of maybe the trust, but all those different pieces that you're putting together that help address any one of those small
I can rattle a couple off real quick. I mean, typically there's a trust that can be structured many, many different ways. There are documents very related to the trust: deeds for real estate, certifications of trust, personal property, assignments of corporations. There's different things related to the trust itself. There are, as part of the bigger plan, powers of attorney dealing with assets, finances, several documents dealing with your own person, health, medical, when you're incapacitated. So all of those things are kind of what I like to think of as core planning. Sometimes there's other things that are out there, special needs matters, different things. There's asset protection that I get involved in a little bit, but that's really taking your asset, putting it in a different kind of trust, trying to protect it from liability. California, most states don't have that. Some states have that, but it really depends on the situation. More liquid the asset, the better. So, but there's different things out there. But what I do is mostly core planning for people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you do a great job of it. So when, I'm always curious what prompts people to call you out of the blue. And from our end, we're going through and creating a financial plan. And so trust is on our checklist. So that's what's prompting the conversation proactively on that end. I'm fascinated by what has to happen for somebody to experience enough pain to be like, I'm calling a trust attorney today.
It's everything. It really is. Sometimes people are like, boy, my parents passed away. We were in court for 3 years. We got to get this going. That happens. Other times it's my financial advisor has been pushing me. My sister's been pushing me a bit. CPA. Other people, they read some article and they call me up and they're using. They don't always know what's going. Even people that are told to do it, people don't always know. But it could be anything. I get people. So many people say, I've been pushing this off for years, and that ranges from people that are 83 years old with great grandkids to people that are, client that they're like 31 and 29 and they have a 3-month-old and we've been pushing this off for too long, and that was a few years ago, which I like that one. But anything in between, it just depends.
And when would you recommend people reach out and get that estate planning done?
I mean, any time. Sometimes we've done, and Chris and I have talked about this before. The moment you become 18, right? I have 3 kids, I mentioned, 20, 18, and 10. My kids are 20 and now 18. If something happens to them, I have no legal right to make health and medical decisions for them because they're adults.
Wow.
I can't deal with assets. They have some bank accounts that if I log into mine, they're there, but it's their accounts. You can't do anything. So if you're in college and you have a slip and fall, I might have trouble getting information unless the right paperwork's in place.
Wow.
So you can start. Now, do you need a trust at that age? No, you don't need that. But when you start to get older, if someone's married, if they have other people depending on them or you, I wouldn't want to be involved with someone and then find out that I have plans in place and they don't, because if something happens to them, I'm in court helping them, and vice versa. Right? If you have life insurance and you have a kid, are you going to leave $1 million to a 13-year-old? To me, I think that's a terrible idea. No. So, it just depends.
Wow, interesting. And then what typically stands out to you versus other estate planning attorneys out there? Why would someone work with you versus a competitor?
I don't know. I like to think of myself as a regular person. You know what I mean? It's just, am I doing anything super new? No, but I think that I like to think that I can relate to people pretty well. I've had some things in my background that make sense, that hit close to home, as I mentioned. I focus on this area of law. I'm not looking at doing other things. And I think I try and, I come from a long line of teachers. My mom was a teacher. My wife's a teacher. My stepmother was a teacher. And I think that's just in me, because to me it's very important not just to say, mail me your questionnaire and I'll send you some documents in a few weeks and you can sign them. Right. There's a lot more that goes into it, like we've been talking about now. I want to make sure that I go through all these things so that my clients know what we're doing and why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. And I know their situation and know how to draft it to make sense for them. And I can't say 100%, but I know there's other people it's just not going to happen.
Right. And just going back to what you said before, again, like focusing on our listeners, because I'll say I just did this with you. Mm-hmm. My daughter turns 18 and we went and visited her college, and I went to the medical, the on-campus hospital. Mm-hmm. And I said to them, fill me in on what happens if she gets hurt. I got hurt like 3 times my freshman year of college, so it was on my mind, right? Like, what happens? I don't know how my parents helped out with any of that at the time. I don't remember. But the woman at the hospital, she looked at me and she said, "Yeah, nothing. I can't share any information with you. You mm-hmm. can't make any decisions for it. There's nothing. You can't do anything."
Right.
And so that's another thing for the listeners that have kids that are about to turn 18 or going to college. That's a great area to contact somebody mm-hmm. And talk to Andrew and get those documents in place. And we did a power of attorney so that I can help with the finances if she isn't able to make those decisions, so I can get to her money and do whatever needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Number 2 was the release of medical information, so mm-hmm. that now the hospitals can talk to me and tell me what's going on with her. And then medical durable power of attorney, which allows me to make decisions for her, God forbid she's incapacitated mm-hmm. or something along those lines. So like you said, there's a lot of different reasons to get involved, but that's one I don't think people think about. I actually just mentioned it to somebody yesterday. Hopefully mm-hmm. you got a referral out of it. But another area where people could get started in this.
Yeah, and that's really nice. And that conversation is not as long as a full-blown everything for Mom and Dad, and it's not as expensive, but it's really important, and it's good to get that going. It's a win-win all around for everyone, and to put that idea in there. And you hit on one key thing, is that even if you name someone to make health decisions for you, if you don't have the other document that allows the hospitals to release information, you've got this weird legal gap where you might be able to make decisions for your daughter, but not be told any information about her.
Right.
So,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You hit on a pain point for me specifically when you said most estate planning attorneys will send you a questionnaire and then they're going to work on your trust, and then you get a trust to sign. That was my exact experience, and unfortunately it was before that we had you on the team. And I remember thinking in that moment
let me jump in. So you sent the questionnaire back, and then they just produced documents?
This is great. I'm getting free consulting. Yes, that's exactly what happened.
With no conversation, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It was a questionnaire, basic information, who would take care of the kids, yada, yada, list of your assets and account numbers, send it back. And then 2-3 months later, they sent me the document and said, we'll send our notary out for this to be signed.
Good for them. I wonder who drafted it. So
you and me both. You and me both.
Yeah. No, I
so
wouldn't do that. I can't do that.
So my feeling was, is that really what estate planning is? Is a trust basically, a cookie cutter document? And why couldn't I have just done this online if I wasn't going to fill anything else out?
Let's start with the negative. There's certain definitions in there, references to the IRS code or whatever. I never change those. There's no reason to. I'm not going to change the definition. But the whole first half of everything can vary wildly, right? That's why I have these long conversations with people. And I think what I love hearing is when people say, oh, I never thought of that. Can we get back to you? Can we talk about it now? What do you think? I hear that all the time. Mm-hmm. How can that be done a different way without going through this with people. So I'll tell people my questionnaire is a really good tool to gather information, start to get the wheels turning. If you're not sure what I'm asking, that's okay. Fill in what you can. We'll change it if you leave something blank. Sometimes I need to know certain things to not include. We'll go over and we'll discuss all this, and we'll need to figure it out. And there's a lot of time spent doing that. I've seen documents before, LegalZoom documents. Honestly, I won't even look at them now. I won't even take money from people to spend my time looking at them, because when I used to do it, we would then get to really the starting line, and I could say, all right, it's been so much time, so much money, we're at the starting line. This is no good for so many reasons. Or, well, this might be okay, but why is this, and this here? I don't know. What this, and this is missing? I don't know. So now we're at the starting line. I spent a lot of time, and we have to really start over again. I tell people now that I won't even, for the most part, I won't really review documents that other attorneys have done, because I don't know anything about the person. People want to make changes. If there's a lot of changes, that's all my liability. If I say this document's okay. So if something from like LegalZoom or something similar to that, it might be fine for someone, but I don't know. And so to make sure we verify it and go through all that, there's a lot of like the work to put it in place.
Yeah.
So
interesting. And there's so many questions I think as a professional you ask that guide them down thought processes that they would have never had on their own, right? And you're not going to get that out of a questionnaire, because you're just filling out the questionnaire.
Right, I have a questionnaire, but
so you do the, but what about this? Well, what if happens with it? And especially if it's husband and wife that are sitting in front of you that are able to kind of go, well, I thought about it this way. And then they get to banter back and forth.
There's so many things that come up.
So, I noticed that a lot in conversations we've had with your ability to kind of guide people to the right answer and make sure that they're not missing anything.
Yeah, well,
that comes with that conversation, right? It can't be done over the internet or in a questionnaire and just printing something out. It has to be thought out, and the conversation needs to kind of happen organically to come up with those answers.
And kind of what you said, I'm not guiding them down a path so that I convince them to get to a certain spot that I want them to get to. It's guiding them down different conceptual areas. If something happens, here's some choices. Some might be better than others. Some might be obvious. Some might come with, well, we really like this and we really like this, and there's trade-offs.
Right.
What are you going to do? And I don't know how you can give someone a questionnaire that does not – people don't know what I do. Like I think we mentioned earlier tonight, people call me up and they're not really sure. Like, well, I know I need a living will. It's not even a document in California, right? It's a concept that doesn't even have anything to do related to a trust or a will.
Right.
People say, oh, I'm not sure if I need a will or a trust. People don't know. And so you don't know how you're going to get there to some of these bigger things.
Right.
So it's,
and sometimes they have ideas in their head, like, oh, we're going to put this person in charge. And you're like, well, have you thought about this? And you're like, oh, no, I didn't think about that.
Right.
But that all happens through conversation. And with your experience to be like, I've guided so many other people and I've seen these situations before, you might want to think about this. And it allows that to develop naturally and everybody come to their own decisions on what is the right course of action to take within the trust. And you're never going to get that on a questionnaire.
Right. No, and that's why I like to, when we have the long conversation, start with some concepts, not go over every kernel that goes back to the invention of the trust with King John in 1500. That's insane.
Right.
But to talk about some basics so people kind of get an idea of, oh, okay, I see what we're doing. And then when we get to these things where some decisions have to be made, because there are trade-offs sometimes.
Right. Yep.
Interesting. My other thought goes to, like, if people don't have a dependable trustee that they feel comfortable or confident in, like, what other resources can they lean on, or do you see financial advisors involved or listed?
It depends. If someone's going to be a trustee, like while Mike and Carol Brady are alive, they set up their trust. They're their own trustees. They're their own two beneficiaries. They handle their assets for themselves. But if someone becomes incapacitated, who's going to do it? Can a financial advisor do it? Maybe, maybe not. If the financial advisor is kind of certified, has insurance, and they want to be a fiduciary, sure. And now they're a trustee, and they're also a financial advisor. But I wouldn't, just a normal financial advisor, they're not going to come to you and ask you to be the trustee, and nor are you going to want to do it.
Yeah, they have, and they do quite often.
Right.
But it's something we actually discourage for sure.
Right.
There's a conflict of interest
could,
there.
right,
that
exactly.
You don't
Right.
really want to be in that situation. And I think people that have never been through the process, which I'm surprised most financial advisors have probably witnessed it, being the trustee and handling an estate, it's not an easy process, especially complicated, bigger estates. It's not a fun process. I actually had a client of mine who's the trustee of his grandmother's estate, and he said, if I would have known what I know now, I wouldn't have agreed to do this. So I think there's more that goes into it, and so you have to have the right person. You got to really think about who you're going to put into that seat, and if you don't have somebody within the family, I really think a professional fiduciary is the way to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes people say, my kids are old enough, we get along great, this is fine. Sometimes people's estates we have 2 bank accounts, we have a house, we can handle it. Other times people have multiple things and it's complicated, but the kids know the family business and they can handle it.
Right.
Other times people maybe don't have someone that they can trust. Maybe there's a friend, but they're professionals. There are companies out there that are just trust companies. There are individuals that are very experienced, certified, insured individuals that act as professional fiduciaries. And there are banks and financial institutions that have trust departments similar to the company. So there's lots of choices out there. Yeah. And each one's look for certain different things. Some of them will handle a business, some only liquid assets. It just depends.
Yeah. I got a question for you, and this is totally random, but I just thought of it as you were saying that, and it kind of goes on this. So I had a client a long time ago that his grandmother's estate basically said that he didn't get any of the money that he was owed until he graduated from college.
Okay. When you say owed, meaning inherit.
Yeah, inherited. Okay. Yeah, until he graduated from college. But he was, if I remember the story correctly, he was a pastor, and he never graduated college, and he had no plans to go to college, and that wasn't any. And so Bank of America was the trustee at the time, and they took it very literal. You didn't graduate college. I can't. This is not your money, right?
Yeah.
So talk about
it's the
that.
grantor's intent issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens in a situation like that? Does the person fight it, go to court and fight it, and all those kinds of things? Is there typically language within the trust that if it wasn't a big institution and it was an individual trustee, that they would be able to flex that a little based on the terms of the trust? Like I'm
going to say yes to everything, even though they might disagree. Right. It just depends.
Got it.
Right. Trustees can have different degrees of discretion. Bank of America might have had discretion and for whatever reason said, nope, we knew this client. She didn't care no matter what you're doing. You could have been some kind of entrepreneur and a millionaire at age 15. You didn't go to college. You're not getting this money. Other people might say, well, the purpose of this was so someone gets an education and establishes himself in life. And if they're doing that, are we going to make them go?
Yeah.
You've got to get a college degree, 4-year degree, public, private, 2-year degree, associates. What counts? Online? I don't know. So sometimes, and it's really sometimes maybe a little more general. We'd like a college degree, but if in the best discretion of our trustee, these goals are accomplished, okay.
Yeah.
It just depends.
Well, that's where that conflict of interest comes in because, of course, what did the client feel? The client felt like, well, they're not letting go of the assets because they don't want to let go of the assets. They want to keep the assets in their company earning fees or whatever, the thought process.
For the trustee himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For that institution that has the assets, right? Well, Bank of America, like, we're not going to release these funds to you just because
depends.
we don't want to. If we want to hold on to them.
Yeah, and sometimes the professional institutional trustees is fantastic. But they might be more strict. Whereas if your friend, maybe if instead of the bank being the trustee, it was, Uncle Fred was the trustee, he might have a little more leeway, and then is he going to get in trouble for this? Only if someone complains, how dare you release this? But the family's going to look at it and say, this is fine. It just depends. Other times, professional trustees are invaluable. It just depends.
I think he was the only beneficiary, too.
Well, so the money had to stay in there until he graduated.
That's the way.
I guess he could have.
But so I think that's the danger, right? Of
certain things. Yeah, it's got to be
who
thought
you
through.
Appoint as the trustee and what verbiage do you put inside of it.
Right.
All things that a professional like yourself is going to help guide them.
Sometimes little things are more loose or our general wishes because when you start to be precise, sometimes I think the more precise you are about certain things, anything that does not exactly fit one of those words isn't included.
Right.
Well, it depends on where you are.
Right.
All different kinds of things.
Right.
Crazy.
Nuts.
Yeah. In your business, obviously, as financial advisors, we're leaning on you constantly. What other professionals do you typically lean on, build a network around, and kind of help their clients based on situations they might be in?
Some things I think are closely related, colleagues, people, friends that I know. I only do planning part, right? People that do what I do, some do planning, some do post-death, some litigate, some deal with guardianships. I only do planning. I like it. Kind of stay in that lane, and I like it. It's good. I have a very close colleague that only deals with post-death matters, doesn't do any planning. He and I work together a lot. He deals with probate, trust administration, straightforward, conflicts, other people, life insurance, health insurance, long-term care. A lot of the thought process that I go through is very along the same parallel lines, brain waves that goes along with that. Of course, financial advisors, because we're dealing with all these things, some real estate agents, things, CPAs, things in that world all kind of touch on all of these things.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to hear you say real estate agents. I never would have thought about that.
Sometimes because people are dealing with houses, so, and they haven't. I get questions here and there. It's not as integral to it, but sometimes real estate agents,
I think it's smart. If a real estate agent is going above and beyond, talking to them and saying, do you have a trust, and are we going to be putting the house into the name of the trust?
Right.
And if not, then have you thought about that and what that might look like in the future? And it'd be a great way for realtors to open up and get a referral
exactly,
and add a little more value
real
to the
estate
service they're providing to the client.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. Real estate agents as well as like mortgage lenders, mortgage brokers, because it's all involved. I had someone a few weeks ago call me up, not going to say in a panic, but sort of anxious because escrow was going to be closing in like 30 days. And she was told she had to get that property in a trust. And I was like, okay, hold on. We're not going to get done. We might even get really, really fully going until then. But you don't need it in there. Let's go through and talk about it. And she's like, oh, I'm really glad we had this conversation. Because she was really worried. And I go, no. I said, so if you own this house already, you're not going to have to sell this house and buy a new one to put in the trust. Well, put your house in the trust. Right. This doesn't have to be none. You can't, if you're in escrow, you don't want to be jamming things up with a late deed recorded and mess up title insurance and, the escrow process and all these things. Just, we're good. We're good.
So help me understand what happened there. She was buying a house. And they said, hey, you need to have a trust built.
You really should get, something along those lines, right? I don't know exactly. But
that they can put the name, the title of the house under the trust.
Right. Close escrow in the name of the trust as opposed to her name as an individual.
Got it.
And so while in big picture, yes, that's correct. She would want that house in the trust. Did it have to be done before escrow closes? No.
Yeah. Simple process of doing it after the fact.
Right. We draft a deed, we put it in, it gets done. Right? Yeah. Get it done. Don't wait till the last minute. I get lots of calls from adult sons or daughters throughout the year on behalf of mom or dad. Most of them are doing legwork and mom and dad are fine, which is cool. And then mom and dad are my clients. Sometimes they want the adult kids' involvement. Sometimes it's just kicking it off. It's fine. Some of those calls, though, unfortunately, mom's got dementia. Dad passed away 3 years ago. Mom has Alzheimer's. And I have to tell them I can't help.
Yeah,
it's too late. You need a different kind of attorney to go to court to do something completely different. It's too late. So if you see parents, make sure your parents have things in place, because if it gets to be too late, that's not good for anybody. So, people have kids, get it done, because you never know what's going to happen. Right. So, right, do you have to panic and get it done? No, but it should be on your plate at some point.
Yeah. Would you say that's the biggest mistake people are making, is just not doing it at all?
Yeah, I mean, not doing it at all, not doing it right, like we talked about earlier. Who knows what's going in? If you don't know what you're doing and you're just answering some certain questions without a lot of nuances, you don't know, because it's almost like a time bomb, right? We draft this document and it's there in the background. Your life goes on day to day without really big changes, and your life goes on and it's waiting there until something happens, and then you don't know until the future how it's going to function. And if it's not done right, It's locked in. Like what Chris was talking about, these people wanted someone grandson to get an education, and he didn't need it to be a successful, happy person. Mm-hmm. But it's locked in. What are you going to do?
Right.
So that's one thing, but also just having things that should be in there that are not, have other things. I think sort of I don't know how you qualify, but just a mistake that I saw years ago was a guy came to me. He had a do-it-yourself trust. He had a company that was worth over $20 million selling parts to aerospace companies. He's married, 3 kids, and his trust didn't own the company, wasn't put in there. His trust also said that if something happened to him, everything would go to him and his wife and his kids then and there. So really the company would have been owned by wife, young daughter, then and there. It was just done so poorly with things missing between the husband and the wife, things in there that shouldn't have been. It was a disaster. So,
Wow. Something to be aware of.
Yeah.
I like that. How many other stories like that do you have?
There's some. Yeah. There's different stuff. There's, without getting, there's some of it more relationship type things, right? People are second marriages. You have kids. Husband has kids. Wife has kids. There's a house. There's different assets. What's going to happen? Someone dies, leaves everything to the new spouse, and the new spouse says, well, because of the way this is done, I can cut out my stepkids that I don't really like and only leave this to my kids. And now they got nothing. And there's nothing they can do. So things have to be thought through.
I mean, you've instilled a ton of confidence in me and my own trust after answering a questionnaire, so I appreciate that. I'm going to check that as soon as we get off air here. But thinking through another scenario of, a lot of clients say, oh, yeah, I have a trust. Yeah, no, we did that in 2001,
right.
When we have this binder. Like, how confident do you feel when someone has a trust that's 20 years old?
It could be fine, honestly. They might say just because it's old, is it bad? No. If an attorney did it, I have a lot more confidence than if not. It just depends. Will I look at it sometimes? Sometimes talk to people and have an idea. That era, late 90s, 2000s, the tax laws were different. The estate tax, which not to really get into that now, but there were certain things because the estate tax threshold when it kicked in when someone died was much lower. And so there was certain planning that was done that was forcing different results when one spouse passed away than we might have much more commonly now. And if that is in those old trusts, it's not nearly as easy to change as just something, right? I like to say, are we going to change a light bulb or are we rewiring the whole house? So there's certain things in there that, depending upon the family situation, might be completely bad to have and really, really cumbersome if one spouse passes. Sometimes it might be fine to keep it. Sometimes it's not in there. It just depends.
Good stuff to be aware of.
Yeah.
I love it. Shameless plug time. I'm curious.
Best ones.
Absolutely. I'm curious, from your perspective, what made sense to kind of aligning yourself as a Prosperitas strategic partner? What stood out to you? What did you love about being a part of the bigger picture?
I trust you guys. I trust Chris, you, Mark, Scott, the whole team. I trust you guys. I didn't feel like you were trying to sell things to people that they didn't need. You want to talk to them, figure out what they are, and put things in place, not pushing things just because the commission's higher, right? I'm not exactly sure, not being licensed, when the fiduciary duty from your side of thing applies, but you treat things as if you have the fiduciary duty in place and you're doing things for clients' best interest. So I like that. I like that you guys cared about your clients. You didn't feel hustled, right? And you're trying to establish it and only bring in people that the founders of the company felt comfortable with, that will follow along with that. So I felt pretty good about all that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, very true.
I still feel that way. So
Thank
it's
you.
pretty cool to be here.
And it's
Feelings are mutual for sure.
Yeah.
Chris, you have some fun questions that you get to ask. It's your power hour. Let's hear it.
Let's see these questions here.
Yeah.
So,
My favorite rock band, the concert that we saw at the Greek Theater Sunday night.
what
Whoa.
concert?
We saw Tedeschi Trucks Band, shameless plug, my favorite band ever. If anyone likes classic rock, blues, jazz, soul, anything, you got to check these guys out. Derek Trucks' uncle was one of the drummers in the Allman Brothers. His wife, Susan Tedeschi, is amazing voice. They have 12 guys on the stage, horn section, backup singers, 2 drummers, keyboards, bass. It's fantastic. They cover Allman Brothers, Eric Clapton, Beatles. Wow. They broke out the other night. First ever time they played a Zeppelin song from Zeppelin 2. It was awesome. So
very cool.
That's cool. I'll have to check those out.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, so what's happening here is we are asking 4 questions to our advisors and our strategic partners. You'll get a score rating for how you answer them, and then we'll have
based on yes or no, or based upon
you'll see. Yeah. Hold on, big guy.
All right.
All right. So advisors, winner on the advisor side and winner on the strategic partner side is going to win a prize.
Cool.
All right. So there's something at stake here. So your first question is, who will be the next president of the United States of America?
Oh, man. That's a loaded question right now. It's so close.
Yeah.
I don't know. I read the news all the time. But I got to pick one.
You got to pick one.
Got to pick one. I think the former president, Trump, is going to win this election. I think he's going to win a close one.
All right. There we go. You heard it here first. Do you think the major stock indices that out there will finish positive by the end of 2024? And the further we get into this year, the easier this question is getting.
It's true, yeah. Positive compared to January 1 to the end.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think they're going to end a bit up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
So that's a yes. Another one, the further we get in, the easier this gets. But how many interest rate cuts and what percentage do you think the Fed will cut interest rates in 2024?
0. No cuts. So
no cuts,
no
zero
rate.
move.
Yeah.
All right, I like that answer.
Yep.
And this is the one I think Robert was predicting
for
you.
if you want.
Okay.
You're gonna answer it?
No.
All right. What team wins the World Series in 2024?
Oh boy. Well, I can't say my Phillies, even though they're the best team in Major League Baseball, because I can't jinx anything.
See?
So Phillies are going to win the National
Oh,
League.
smart. I like that.
And I'm going to pick to win the World Series. I'm going to pick the hated Yankees over the Phillies.
Yanks, huh? Gosh.
Wow.
All right.
See,
Well,
I would have got it wrong.
Yeah,
That's
you would have
why
got it wrong.
That's
I
why
can't
you
jinx them.
It's because all of our LA
So
people,
much fun.
LA
Yeah.
people come in here and it's like Dodgers,
Yeah.
Dodgers.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
Not enough pitching right now. We'll see.
All right.
That's true.
All right. Well, love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Andrew, where can people find you, connect with you? Are you on social?
I have a website,
Okay.
andrewcohenlegal.com. I have some social media, but I don't do a lot there. But find me on Yelp, Google. Just look me up on Google. It shows up. And
Yeah. A
Yeah,
lot of
get in touch.
5-star reviews on Google. I was
I hope
looking
so.
at that recently.
Thank
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or just call Prosperitas Financial. We'll link you up with them.
perfect.
Yep.
Even better. Yeah, talk
absolutely.
to these guys.
Andrew, thank you so much for being back on the Advice First podcast.
Loved it. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.